does look tenuous.
And they're making changes on a bill that will not have had an independent analysis by the CBO or by other nonpartisan groups or the Joint Tax Committee. So to be continued. Garrett, thank you so much for all of that. And joining me now from the other side of the Hill, Democratic Congressman Steny Hoyer, the second-ranking Democrat in the House. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Leader. Great to see you.
Good to be with you.
A lot going on. Now, a motion to proceed. Mitch McConnell has just... It seems as though the president has rallied the troops, that the Republicans in the Senate are going to hold firm, so far, at least, with promises TBA. What say you on the House side? Do you think you can stop this in conference? Do you think this tax bill is now going to become a reality?
Well, I'm hoping that it goes to conference, because if it goes to conference, it is not just blindly accepted by the House if, in fact, the Senate passes something. But if that happens, it will be bad for the country. It's a bad bill. And what is happening is that senators are not deciding on policy. They're deciding on politics. They're deciding on the proposition that if they don't pass a bill politically, they will be badly damaged. But they have neither taken the time nor the care to review this bill. And as you just pointed out, it's being changed as we speak, so that when it comes to a vote, if it comes to a vote this week, senators are not going to have the faintest idea what the ramifications of this bill are and the harm that's going to cause to the American people and the millions of people who are going to lose health insurance as a result of some of the provisions, and the fact that some 82 million Americans are going to get a tax hike, not a tax cut, in this bill, and the wealthiest Americans are going to get over 60% of the benefits. None of that really makes any sense in terms of growing the economy, creating jobs, and making sure that middle-class Americans can succeed. So that I think it's very, very unfortunate the way this bill is being considered. And I would hope that senators would take the time and have the courage to slow this down, say no to things they don't like, and say we ought to work together with Democrats to come up with a bipartisan tax reform bill as we did in 1986.
Now, there were two empty chairs at the meeting with the president yesterday. We had Nancy Pelosi's chair, of course, and Chuck Schumer's chair, boycotting the meeting because of what Pelosi described as the verbal abuse from the president in his tweet earlier in the day, accusing them falsely on immigration, on tax increases, and the like. That said, are you now dealing yourselves out of this equation? What leverage do you have when it comes to budgets and the Dreamers and everything else that are part of your agenda?
Well, what we've had historically is the votes. Historically, over the last 7 years, Republicans have been unable to come to an agreement on pursuing fiscally responsible pieces of legislation. They simply have not had the votes. That's given us the leverage, not a sense on their part that they wanted to work with us, although I hope that would come about. But it was simply that they needed the votes. So when you ask where the leverage is with the votes. What happened yesterday was unfortunate. The meeting was set up. Leader Pelosi and Leader Schumer were prepared to go down there and have a discussion, as they have in the past, to talk constructively about how we could move forward. And in fact, the result of the last meeting was that we had a no-drama continuation of government funding last September. The problem here is that the president said in his tweet, not only accusing us of wanting to people flood across the borders, that is certainly baloney. That is not true. We know we need secure borders. We know we need controlled borders. We know we need to know who's coming into this country. We also, not soft on crime at all. We know that threatens average working people as much as it threatens anybody in the country, and it threatens all of us. And so we need to confront that. But then the president said, therefore, no deal is possible. Therefore, no deal is possible. He hadn't met, he hadn't sat down, but he was already no deal is possible. So Leader Schumer and Leader Pelosi were left with a sense that they were just being used as pawns to pretend that they were pursuing bipartisanship. And in that case, that was not something I think they thought they ought to lend themselves to. This tax bill and the Affordable Care Act repeal bill are exactly stark evidence of an unwillingness to deal in a bipartisan fashion.
Let me ask you about a partisan, well, a Democratic issue, which is what's going on inside your own caucus on the sexual harassment question. Congressman Conyers' former spokesman, Bob Weiner, came out last night to talk and defend the congressman's behavior. Let's watch this.
His closet is right in his office, right here. He changes clothes in his office. Most of us have walked in on him accidentally without knocking and have seen him in his underwear. Big deal.
Big deal? Should Congressman Conyers resign?
I don't think we want to, first of all, get into rationalizing behavior which is really unacceptable. So I'm not going to go there. The fact of the matter is that he has stepped aside from being ranking member of the committee. Mr. Nadler of New York is now the acting ranking member of that committee. We need to make sure, you asked what we need to do, we need to make sure, A, we have a safe working place for all of the women who work on Capitol Hill, as well as the men. That's the first objective. B, everybody needs to know how to redress a grievance that they have without feeling threatened, without being victimized by the process itself, so that they need to know exactly what to do. We need to have training on that. We're adopting a training, mandatory training for our members, but we need to do much more than that. Jackie Spear has a bill which is going to provide a better process, but we need to do even more than that. And we need to make sure that we have a process that works for the victim as well as the accused, that due process is followed, but that at the end of the process, which is done relatively quickly and with very great consideration for the victim in this case, because it is terribly difficult to come forward in these kinds of cases. And that's why the credibility of those who come forward is so high. And we need to have that done in a quick fashion,
well,
and accountability needs to be exercised.
Speaking of a quick fashion, Congressman Clyburn told one of our colleagues on the Capitol Hill last night that there are 5 instances, so far at least, should Congressman Conyers resign. I'm sorry,
Clyburn said there are 5 instances in which
accusations against Congressman Conyers. Should he resign from his position as an elected official? Should he leave Congress?
I understand that. My own view is, and the reason this is difficult to deal with, is because we all believe in due process. I hope. We all believe that people have the opportunity to say, look, I didn't do this. Notwithstanding the credibility of the witnesses, we have a process to determine were these allegations founded. And if they're founded, yes, he should resign.
Thank you very much. Steny Hoyer, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.